a sustainable future across the various sectors they work in. They are Tom Peacock-Nazil, founder of 7 Clean Seas, JJ Tron, founder of Rehyphen, Ray Padit, founder of The Fashion Pulpit. And before I hand over to the panelists, I wish to encourage all participants to use the chat box to pose your questions and interact with other participants. Tom, please do the honor to start the panel and share the mission and value of 7 Clean Seas.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the introduction there. I'm just going to share my screen quickly. If you can, actually, no, sorry, I need to share my whole screen. My apologies. Okay, there we go. So, my name is Tom Peacock. I'm the founder of a ocean cleanup organization based here in Singapore called 7 Clean Seas, and we've been operational since kind of mid-2018. Now, we're also a certified social enterprise, and we are very fortunate to be the winners of the BritJam Sustainability Champion of the Year Award for last year, but also the United Nations World Tourism Organization Global Startup Championship for 2021. Now, this was looking at all of the SDGs. It was looking for global winners, and we were just completely amazed that we somehow won the award for SDG 14. So that was out of 10,000 applications globally as well. So great to get some recognition for the work we're doing. Now, our mission is several-fold, essentially, but the core is to develop a scalable funding mechanism, a funding mechanism which will allow us to generate capital, which we can then deploy across several different areas, including ocean cleanup projects, river cleanup projects, waste management, infrastructure. And of course, when we're operating in areas with high levels of plastic pollution, it goes kind of without saying that unfortunately, they tend to be quite vulnerable communities from a socioeconomic perspective as well. So we try to provide employment to kind of informal workers and really create as much social impact at the same time. Now, for us, the problem that we're trying to fix is ocean plastic pollution. And I think it's fair to say, unless you've been living under a rock, you've heard about this. It is a massive problem. 11 million metric tons of plastic are flown into the ocean every single year. Now, believe it or not, the picture on the back of this was taken here in Singapore. So although we are a very clean country with one of the world's best infrastructures when it comes to waste management, we are not immune to the effects of ocean plastic pollution. But the scary fact is, this is today, not today, but this is current time. By 2040, it's estimated that this is going to almost triple to 29 million metric tons. Now, if you don't know what that looks like, think 50 kilos of plastic on each meter of coastline globally every single year. It is a gargantuan problem and something that we've already let get way too bad. So we've got to act as quickly as possible if we're going to get on top of this issue. Now, ocean plastic pollution is obviously big and it's bad, and it's where my passion was born. But the reality is it is a symptom of a broken system. And one of the sad realities is that 2 billion people in this world do not have access to waste management at all. Now, a lot of these 2 billion people do have access to plastic products. And from an ethical perspective, they absolutely should do as well. Just because they're not fortunate to live in an area with high levels of aggregation or waste management doesn't mean they're not entitled to the same nice things that we're entitled to in the more developed world. So we can't take their plastic away, but we do need to focus on this and fix this as quick as possible if we are to make a difference. Sorry. So in terms of what we've achieved so far, 7 Clean Seas has recovered over 110 tons. It's an enormous figure that's taken us a long time, and we're really happy with this. But at the same time, it's kind of a contentious number, because the reality is it's almost insignificant when you're looking at the 11 million metric tons of plastic that are entering the ocean every year. And we really have to do something to scale up our impact dramatically, not just on the educational side, but also on the physical collection and interception level. Now, in terms of that kind of strategy that we're moving forward with, we set ourselves some goals for 2025. The first is to recover over 10,000 tons of ocean plastic across the 7 worst plastic polluting countries globally. Now, as you can see in the bottom left corner, that is the list of the top 7 plastic polluting countries as per a very famous research paper from Jambal et al. In 2015. And we have a project in Indonesia and Malaysia and Vietnam. So what are we actually doing? Because if you think we've recovered 110 tons today, but we want to do 10,000 in the next 3.5 years, it seems like an almost uncomprehendable jump for us to be able to achieve that. But with the right partners that we've already got in place and the projects that we've invested in, we are scaling up rapidly. And we've got 2 ongoing projects that we're really proud about. The first is a very, very ambitious project. We teamed up with Marina Bay Sands on this, who gave us initial funding to develop this innovative technology. And we realized that 70% of ocean plastic is actually being generated or being transported by some of the world's biggest rivers. So if you want to invest in ocean cleanup, the best return on your value is actually looking at rivers where it's a contained unit and you've got this constant flow. So we developed a system that is completely self-sustaining with solar and wind energy. It can collect over around 1.5 million kilos of plastic every single year. And I'm happy to share that we've now brought on Howden Group Holdings, and we've got the funding in place to physically build it and put it in a river in Vietnam by the end of this year. So the project is ongoing and we can't wait to really get it in action. It's going to be a big step in the right direction for us. The second project we're working on is much closer to home. So very close to Singapore, you've got the Riau Archipelago with Batam, Bintan, and a bunch of other islands over there with lots of different communities. Now we're focused on Bintan, and we realized in kind of April time last year that they were going to be heavily affected by COVID-19. A lot of them are reliant on the tourism industry. And what we decided to do was physically take over employment of 22 individuals from the hospitality industry to not just offer them employment and create that social impact I was talking about earlier, but to get them doing environmental cleanup at a large scale on a marine protected area. There's a 1.2 or 1.4 million hectare marine protected area to the east of Bintan that does need protecting. But again, as happy as we are with this, it's not going to fix the problem. We have to scale up. And that's where Microsoft have really come on to allow us to move from phase 1 to phase 2 as a major project funding partner. So phase 2 moves away from just doing beach cleanups and actually building the infrastructure you need to stop plastic leaking in the first place. Believe it or not, there is no plastic waste management in the whole of the Riau Archipelago. Now, if you want to recycle your plastic in Batam or Bintan, it has to be collected by someone and transported 1,400 kilometers away to Java, to the nearest recycling infrastructure. There is a lot of infrastructure in Johor State in Malaysia, which is super close, but because of the Basel Agreement, we cannot transport our low value mixed waste over there. So what we're doing is enabling plastic recycling for the first time by building a materials recovery facility, which will aggregate plastic, sort plastic, we'll be baling it by the different types. We'll be able to wait until we've got volumes high enough to economically justify the long trip to Java for it to be recycled. And the non-recyclables will be working to develop other solutions like turning it into construction materials. And our final goal is to actually have no plastic in the environment, going to sanitary landfill at all. So finding ways to divert all of the plastic that is currently either leaking into the environment at a 60% rate or going to the landfill. Now, none of this would have been possible without having some fantastic partners on board. Now, Microsoft, Howden, and Marina Bay Sands joined us fairly early on, and I'm happy to share that they were met with kind of Kuehne+Nagel and Ecker Family Foundation as well. They've really got behind us in backing our economic model to fix this problem, because we do need to have scalable systems in place that can generate capital that can be invested to try and fix the problem. And on the right-hand side is kind of our UN accolades. I never thought we'd have accolades from the UN, but the award from the UNWTO, we're on an incubator in Halong Bay with the UNDP, and the UNEP is a very close partner of ours. But really, where do we work with organizations? Like, how are we generating our capital to build these awesome projects? And it's really across action, education, and donation. So we do waste auditing, we do plastic reduction strategies for corporate partners, and we offer plastic offsetting. And we were one of the first people in the world to do this, and we've actually developed this, and we're one of the project partners for the world's biggest standard on plastic offsetting. We do a lot of educational talks and cleanups, and of course we do receive grant funding as well. And just to really finish up on this slide, it's, you know, plastic offsetting for us is the ability for a company to offset unavoidable plastic use by investing in projects that tackle plastic pollution. Of course, we want companies to reduce the plastic they're using and not just offset and greenwash, because that is obviously one potential way that this whole system could be manipulated. But really, we want to work with people to do a full waste audit, analyze how much plastic they're using, find ways to reduce that plastic, help them make 2030, 2040 waste reduction or zero waste plans. And then in the interim, whilst there is this unavoidable plastic usage, we want to help them offset that by investing in our projects that are stopping plastic either entering the ocean or pulling plastic out of the ocean. So it's been a pretty wild ride. I'm not going to lie. We've only been around for almost 3 years now, but it's been absolutely fantastic. And I'm so happy to be on this panel, and we've got something cooking with CDL as well, which will be quite fun.
Thanks, Tom, for sharing your projects. They sound super exciting. Next up, we have JJ Tron, founder of Re-. Over to you, JJ.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Tom. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep, we can see.
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is JJ Tron from Re-. Before I start, I would like to rewind and talk a little bit about my background. So this little girl sitting in front of the piano is me with my younger brother. I started my music education when I was 5 years old. To be honest, I was not a great pianist, and I do not know how to enjoy music when I was young, because music to me is about examination. And I quit my music education when I was 18 years old. And when I was 18, I had this opportunity to work in Yellowstone National Park in the States as a pantry chef. It was my first time seeing animals free to roam in the park. And as a human in the city, from the city, I was actually entering into another world, a world that is dominated by animals. So this is a normal scene that I see every day when I was staying in the park. And this 6 months unique experience made me learn how to respect animals and also appreciate what Mother Nature had given to us. And I switched my music educations to fashion. In my fashion journey, there are two important mentors that influenced me a lot. The first one is Anna Sui. I was very fortunate to work in her pattern making studio in New York as an intern in 2008, and lucky enough to interact with her when doing fitting session and also have a chance to interview her. At the end of my internship, I received her personal testimonial. Not only helped me in my career, but also served as a motivation tool whenever I want to give up along my journey. And the second person is Yoli. When I studied in Parson, I was selected as a recipient of Yoli Fellowship Program, which allowed me to work directly with her. And Yoli focused on sustainability fashion, and her collections are all made of zero waste pattern, as there is no wastage in her fabric cutting. And besides, I also participated the People Climate March in 2014. And this is by far the biggest climate march in history, which made me really wonder, how can I do, or what can I do to influence people to view global warming as a serious issue? So when I came back from New York, I found a box of cassette tapes in my storeroom. So this box of cassette tape is part of the medium of communication with my best friend in school, who moved to Australia. So back then, smartphone and social media had not been invented yet, and international calls was very expensive for students. So therefore, my friend and I came up with a solution to record what we want to say, the music that I composed, our favorite music from a radio, in a cassette and send it to each other. So when I saw this box of cassette tape is actually full of my memory, I was not going to throw them away. I started to do experiment on them. So I pull out the tapes and using different techniques such as like knitting, embroidery, and different methods to put them together, but it all does not work. So finally, I started to weave it. So this is how I weave the tapes. And after doing some research, I found this report from MIT Press show that there are actually 56 million kilograms of plastic were used to produce cassette since its first launch in 1963 until 1988. So this is just part of the environmental cost from music. We have not included CD and vinyl yet. And in Rehyphen, we believe that music is a universal language that ties people together. So it has the power to change the world. So how might we reimagine a new way of exchanging music by addressing our global plastic waste issue and transform them into another form that inspires global community? So by using cassette as our medium to start the conversation with public without making sustainability topic too serious, I combine my love in music and also my background in fashions and come up with this new material called music cloth. So our very first music cloth was sent to Material Connection Library in New York. I was very fascinated about this library. When my textile lecturer brought us to a field trip, I could spend my whole day in this library just to touch and feel the materials. I would like to show you a 1-minute videos from Dr. Andrew Dan from Material Connection who introduced music cloth. Here you go.
This material is quite fascinatingly made out of a waste product. It's actually recycled cassette tape. The fabric, it's a flexible, quite durable fabric, is actually produced through looming in the same way that you would make a regular fabric, but instead using the tapes themselves, which are laid flat and then woven together. The aptly named music cloth can actually find a lot of different applications where fabrics are basically used. One can imagine it for fashion or accessories, and also for interiors. One can imagine using it for a drapery, perhaps as a screen, or any other application where textiles are used. One challenge, of course, is that this only comes in one color. Cassette tape is this sort of brown, but one can also print onto it. So there's no reason why you couldn't create a more colorful effect through printing. One of the questions we always think about when getting interested in these types of products is, if it's a waste material, does it have an unlimited resource stream? One of the challenges this company might have is that eventually we're going to run out of cassette tape from which to produce it from. So that's an interesting dilemma to have. The textile was added to the Material Connection Library because we love creative use of waste materials. It's a fascinating story, but also the fabric itself has some, good performance properties. So it's a combination of great use of waste. It's an innovative product in itself. It also has a wide range of applications.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Andrew Dan. What you saw just now is our very first music cloth, which we don't know how to finish the edge, so we just tie a lot of knots at the end. About 9 months of experiment, we came up with a solution to have a clean edge version of music cloth, which we have been using this technique until today. 2020 is a crazy year for everyone because of the pandemic. Before the pandemic, we have received these invitations from Red Dot Design Museum, Xiamen, China, for these exhibitions called 2020 Social Design Exhibition Asia. So they curate 100 proposals for the future from 20 different countries that showcase in China. And after the exhibition, because of the overwhelmed response, they decided to keep music cloth as their museum collections for future exhibitions and events. We were also handpicked by Kevin McLeod. He is the British designer and television host for Grand Design as his top 7 green heroes in 2018 and 2019. Our bestseller is our music cloth CD mat collections, which has been very popular since we first launched. And you can see our revolutions on how we evolved throughout this year. So our company is registered in 2018, and in 2021, we came up with this new feature, which is called Scan and Listen feature, where every music cloth comes with a QR code, where a customer could actually scan and listen our secret city playlist that's specially created for each city. Besides, we also promote emerging musicians that we will introduce one new song in our playlist every month to help them to get exposure. Along with our mat collections, we do have music club products such as like clutch bag, tote bags, stationery products, and lifestyle products. And those empty cassette tapes that we finish weaving, we don't throw it away, so we upcycle them again into a unique greeting card. We call it tweet tapes. So where a customer could actually customize their tweet in a tape and send it to their loved one. When they send this tweet tape to someone they love, they're actually passing the sustainability message at the same time. And we also host workshops where public could visit our studio and they could actually have a sneak peek on our cassette tape archive, and they can pick their favorite tapes and we can teach them how to weave into either a city map poster or their self-portraits. And we have hosted different age group from 7 to 70 years old. And we do provide a Walkman experience during our workshops, and kids love the Walkmans and they think it's cooler than an iPad because it's a brand new toy for them. And lastly, I want to end my slides with a quote from Ava Atos. Nothing old is ever reborn, but neither does it totally disappear. And that which was once born will always reappear in a new form. You are invited to follow us on our social media, Instagram and Facebook, Re-hyphen for our latest update. Thank you so much for listening my journey, and I will pass it to Ray.
Thanks so much for sharing your journey with us, JJ. It's really inspiring to hear how your passion for music, fashion, and sustainably birthed Re-hyphen's music cloth. Next up, we have Ray, founder of the Fashion Pulpit.
Okay, hi everyone. Let me just share my screen. Okay, there you go. So firstly, thank you so much for having me as part of the panelists. And I'm happy to share with you our journey to why we get here. So it all started when I was really been interested in the fashion industry. I mean, like everyone is part of the industry because all of us wear clothes. And the thing that really interests me at first to be in the fashion industry is to be part of that eclectic strong voices who decide of what is fashionable and what is going to be the trend of today. And that was mainly the reason why I started studying fashion. And because of that interest, I pursued my dream of becoming a fashion designer. So it was really fun, and all the expectations that I had about the fashion industries and the things that I've learned about the fashion industry is what I was experiencing it when I had my own line. So like executing fashion shows and planning for the collections and photo shoots, and of course meeting amazing people. So that has been a fun journey for me as well. But along the way, part of me, there was something missing. The creative side of the fashion industry, and of course, the fun part of it was being fulfilled. But at least for myself, there was a missing part, which was the meaning and purpose of what I was doing. Not that being a fashion designer has no meaning or it has no purpose. At least for me, it was lacking. So from that experience and that longing and desire to know more, I started digging what's happening in the fashion industry, because for me, I think there's just a lot of like undiscovered things that is actually not taught in school when you're studying about fashion design. All you learn is about conceptualizing clothes or fashion events, but not so much in touch with the supply chain. So after that research, I've discovered that actually fashion is one of the most polluting industry, and not knowing, or like there's just a big gap between that information as a fashion designer and also the people who are working behind it. I'm sure most of you are quite familiar of what's happening in the fashion industry and all the statistics that I'm showing with you all. Like one of the few statistics that we have, like fashion is actually 20% contributor of water pollution, and most of it are from like the developing countries. And if you go to the human aspect or the social aspect to it, a garment worker is actually in Bangladesh is actually just paid about $100 per month, which is just about 30% of what they need to live a decent life. Now, you may argue that Bangladesh has different lifestyle, but knowing that fashion industry is of 1.3 trillion in revenue annually, how come we cannot pay the people who are making our clothes? And if we're talking about waste globally, it is equivalent to one garbage truck full of clothes is burned or dumped in a landfill every second. And just in Singapore alone, we are consuming an average Singaporean will purchase about 34 new clothes a year and discard 27 pieces of them. So knowing all this information really got me thinking of like my love and my passion for fashion. And for me to continue, I wanted to do something different aside from being a fashion designer. And it was very challenging because it was only a year when I was doing my own line, and now I have to decide to stop it and continue doing something else that is part of the fashion industry as well. So it was paralyzing, knowing what to do. But what really empowered me was the information that I got from that research and from talking to different people. So the first step that I did after closing the line that I had was came up with a nonprofit organization called Connected Threads Asia, was with the aim of making the information accessible to everyone. Because for me, I did not have like a first-hand experience of going to factories and seeing the bad effects or like the poor conditions of the garment workers or the water pollution. But the information was enough for me to change how I see the fashion industry. So with that aim, hoping after giving or making the information accessible, everyone also would have the same perspective, or at least they will change their perspective as a consumer or how they engage in the fashion industry. So with the nonprofit, the aim was really to just spread awareness. So we were organizing different panel discussions, documentary screenings, and fun events. And after doing this for a couple of months, I think 2 years down the road, we were creating a small community of people who are interested in fashion at the same time, who wanted to do something good in the fashion industry. And because all of us were in the same journey, not knowing really the effects of the fashion industry and discovering all this information, the next question for us, like, okay, we know what we know now. What else can we do with the information that we have? So there was a missing piece, which was the tangible action that we were looking for. And one of the meetings that we had, we were just talking about, okay, what can we do to implement the awareness or the information that we got? And the easiest way or platform that we found was swapping, because everyone has clothes, especially in Singapore. There's such of overconsumption, and there's just a lot of clothes that we no longer use. It's about only 20% of what we have in our wardrobe that we use. So what happens to the 80%? So there is just that big opportunity for us. So by creating a clothes swapping platform, we're able to give the clothes that are not used by the owners a chance to find their new owners. At the same time, for the owners will find something new also from the event. So with that, we have organized different swapping events in different parts of the island. It depends on the partners that we got. So I think it was after 3 swaps where we discovered that this could be a potential business model. At the same time, we have seen that this is also fulfilling the need to dress up, or what fashion, the conventional fashion was giving it. The swapping was also fulfilling that. So after that, since we were organizing the event every month, and we decided to make it more of a lifestyle. And for us to make it more of a lifestyle, it needs to be available 24/7. And that's where we've decided to make it as a physical shop, so everyone can swap anytime they want and whenever they're free, and they will not just be waiting whenever we will have like a pop-up event. So fast forward to today, we have now a physical shop that is located now in Marina One. Currently we have one this year. And for all of you who are not familiar with how the swap works, there's just three easy steps that you have to follow. So you need to be a member. We have different types of membership depending on what would work for you. And once you're a member, you can bring in the clothes that you have, and we will evaluate it based on the quality, style, and brand. From there, you will earn points. The points then that you earn becomes your money to buy whatever you want from the shop. So that's the last part, which you can start swapping. So since 2018, when we opened the first shop, this is not actually an updated number. Currently, we have 110,000 fashion items that we have saved from the landfill. And if you ask, okay, what is fashion or clothes swapping is doing in terms of the environmental and social aspect to address the problem that we have. So to give you just an example, if you are swapping about 20 kilos of clothes, you are saving energy to run a TV nonstop for 1.7 years. And if you are using or extending the lifespan of your clothes about 50 times use instead of 5 times, you are actually reducing your carbon emission by about 400% per item per year. So this is the impact that you are creating when you are swapping. And so that's the reason why we really have started clothes swapping. And if you would want to know more about us, you can follow us on our social media. And currently we have now two branch of the business, which focus on two different things, because the whole objective really of what we're doing is to extend the lifespan of every clothes that has already been produced. And sadly, not everyone is open yet to swap. So we want to create different touch points for everyone to embrace the secondhand lifestyle, which is the first one is the play date. So this is more of a thrift targeting the younger generation, which is the Gen Z. And just a few months ago, we have launched our upcycled line, which is PR Rework, that is focusing on upcycling the clothes that are not swapped from the shop. So that's a short story of how we got here, and thanks for listening.
Thank you so much for sharing, Ray. The evolution of your sustainable fashion journey and the amount of fashion items saved is really amazing. Up next is our panel discussion to be moderated by CDL's Chief Sustainability Officer, Esther.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. And pardon me for joining you a little bit late, but I didn't miss all Tom's presentation. Today is Earth Day, and happy Earth Day to everyone. And it was also a very busy day since early morning. You know, I have the first forum was called Ocean and Sustainability. And just now I was talking to the business people, the accountant and the valuers. So now I'm back here, which is my favorite subject, circularity and recycling and all that. So thank you for the three very wonderful, amazing presentation. But you know, this morning I have six of them are actually divers and also marine conservationists. So some of them still feel that ocean and sustainability, you know, has not been really. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we
Hello.
can hear you.
Okay. So it just stopped on my side. We need to reconcile, because the habit of people is like treating the ocean is like a garbage dump. And research showed that actually about 80% is estimate only, yeah, about 70 to 80% of the waste in the oceans are actually from men on land. So I think, Tom, this is very close to your heart. And just now, Ray also talking about water, you know, and ocean, you know, pollution. And JJ, you too are taking away a lot of plastic from, you know, going into the sea, right? So, but I know that there are a lot of passion in all of you. But have you really felt that there has been change of behavior over the last few years that you are, engaged in this mission, and what do you think can do better, to really change people's mindset? I mean, we all talk about education, but it takes time, and we don't really have a lot of time in this so-called, a decade of urgent action. So maybe you want to share with us your thoughts. How do you want to, speed up and, the whole journey of educating people and reaching out to them? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take that one. Happy Earth Day, Esther. It's great to be here. It's a really good question, and look, the reality is actually the world is not a linear place. It's not equal, and everywhere you go, you've got different levels of infrastructure, different levels of kind of like wealth, and also different issues in their life, like different challenges that they're facing day in, day out. I think it's fair to say that in the more developed world, like here in Singapore and the West, and maybe Australia and a few other countries as well, I think it's very kind of clear that there is a major move towards sustainability. Now, the main kind of, I guess the main driving force behind that is carbon, but absolutely circularity, zero waste is kind of coming up in a close second as well, which is great because there's just so much information available. The schools are starting to teach it. There's groups you can get involved with, and there's service providers like the Fashion Pulpit that you can kind of really go and live that lifestyle that will enable you to be generating less waste or less plastic pollution. Now, the sad thing is that's not the case everywhere. And in a lot of the, I guess, less developed locations around the world actually have many different problems that aren't just pollution focused. There may be kind of income problems where people are living below the minimum wage and they just need to make money to put food on the table for their families and their kids. So, they may not have the luxury of having really good infrastructure to collect the garbage that they do produce, and that may end up leaking into the natural environment. So I think in a lot of these less developed locations that we've been active in at 7 Clean Seas, people are starting to think about sustainability, but it's still kind of a fringe subject. And until we can kind of look at environmentalism in the whole and realize that in these locations, it's also a socioeconomic issue, until we can start kind of fixing some of the baseline socioeconomic issues in these locations, it's going to be difficult to get everybody fully committed to environmentalism. So I really think we've got to be holistic. We've got to look to just help as many people and as many locations to give the tools, the businesses, the income opportunities, so that kind of economic development can happen, and slowly but surely you'll see the same shift that we've seen here in the West. That's personally my own opinion.
Yeah, wonderful. Create more green jobs, and hopefully they will see it as it's not a voluntary work, and actually it's really like can be a job for them. Okay, Ray, do you have anything to share?
Yeah, I think it's really is the reality that not everyone would have the same opportunities as what we are enjoying here, and it is about sharing and also expanding the capacity that we have to help this less privileged, I would say, for them to be able to adapt in the climate change, because it's not only that it's focused in a specific country, but it's everyone is affected. So I think even if we say that education can really help us a lot, but I think the action is more important.
JJ, you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah. Thank you. Happy Earth Day. I think that for today's consumer, green credentials is weighed more heavily than ever. And through product and services, brand can actually help consumers to achieve a more environmental friendly lifestyles. And in Rehyphen, we want to make sustainability topic not so serious. That's why we involve music in our element as a medium to start the conversations. Yeah.
Okay.
And this year we also introduced scan and listen features where people can actually really listen to the music.
Yeah, sounds exciting. You're approaching it from the artistic and also creative way. to engage and educate. Yeah. So, last year, 2020, is really a year that is like the world has almost come to a stop. And but one aspect, which is sustainability and ESG, environment, social, and governance, has not really, affected, and in fact, it has been accelerated. So how, what is this trend that has actually impacted on your mission and your business? Has it been helping you to, ride on the wave and accelerate, or it has actually given you some challenges, such as, like for Ray, the recycling, aspect? People may worry about, like, oh, is it hygienic for me to, wear other people's clothes and all that? So, it's like a double-edged sword. What do you, encounter, after I mean, not quite after COVID yet, but what is the impact of COVID 2020 to you, and in your own mission moving forward?
Right. Thanks for that question, because we have been facing this ever since we've started. I think even if we position ourselves as a clothes swapping platform, essentially our business is secondhand. And being a secondhand, there's a lot of negative mindset that comes along with it. So even when we started, that has been always the concern about the hygiene and how do we clean up the clothes. Um, After the pandemic, or like the circuit breaker, I would say, a lot of people, I guess, had more time to understand the topic of the whole sustainability. And I think in the fashion industry also, the secondhand movement or lifestyle is becoming more common, not just in the West, but also in Asia. Like everyone is becoming more accepting, and surprisingly, we have more open-minded people who come to the shop and is willing to do or purchase secondhand, because they have seen really the problem in the fashion industry, and having different alternatives on how we can acquire clothes, they've become more savvy to it. And one of it is, of course, secondhand. And now it's easier for us to convince them to do secondhands because of those information that we have been talking about in on our social media, and a lot of activism that has been happening also during the pandemic. So this has also accelerated the whole action towards a more meaningful in terms of the whole sustainability in the fashion industry. So I would say the pandemic has helped us accelerate in educating everyone to be more open-minded in how we can acquire clothes, because the old or the traditional way of just transactional of like giving your money and getting the product is no longer really the most common one, whereas there's going to be like subscription and rental and swapping platforms that they can actually get the clothes from.
That's wonderful. DJ, do you encounter similar, concern? Yeah, yours is more like, handbags and all that, which is, I think it is still better than, wearing on the, on the body. So how do you encounter that and, to tackle that?
During the lockdown period, I think consumers are slowing down their pace and willing to pay more attention to human society and desire a better and sustainable world more than ever before. And the problem that we face is actually our logistic issue. Because of the pandemic, our online sales is accelerate, and we need to ship overseas our products, but the shipping problem is the main issues for us. And also during the lockdown period, a lot of people are clearing out their stuff, and we receive a lot of cassette tape donations more than ever before. And it has caused us a storage problems that we run out of storage. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Tom, do you have anything to add on? Whether it helped you or it's work against you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, like you mentioned, kind of ESG commitments have absolutely surged, and I think that's off the back of kind of everybody just having kind of an issue thrown in our face, like something that we can live and breathe and see. Unlike, unfortunately, climate change and often plastic pollution at the true scale. But what this surge has done, I mean, personally, it's created a really good opportunity, because our whole kind of social enterprise is selling a service, an environmental service, and the more companies see value in investing in sustainability, the more opportunities we're going to have as a kind of social enterprise to sell our sustainability service, make capital, and then invest into these projects. I would say, kind of on a bit of a tangent, that a lot of these kind of ambitious goals that have been set by some companies. Now, I can only speak for the plastics industry, but a lot of people are coming out and be like, we want to be zero plastic, or like, I think Iceland in the UK came out, which is a big supermarket in the UK, and said that they don't want to have any plastic packaging by like 2025. Coca-Cola wants to be 50% recycled PET. And these kind of commitments have been made over and over again at ever more ambitious levels. But the fact remains actually that the kind of market mechanisms are not in place to be able to deliver on these kind of really ambitious goals that people have set themselves publicly. And what we're going to find is that there's a major supply issue on recycled plastics, which means that a lot of these people are not actually going to hit these goals. Now, whether they've done this because they truly believe that they can work on that supply chain between now and then, or whether this is just getting on the bandwagon with everybody else and kind of greenwashing to an effect, and kind of throwing out these statistics that they haven't necessarily realized are unrealistic, or these goals that are not necessarily realistic in the longer term. I guess time will tell, but it's you know, there'll be people out there that absolutely do the right thing and just come out of this thing having transformed their organizations. And I think there'll be some other organizations out there that maybe overcommitted and now are facing kind of accusations of greenwashing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, especially for listed company, I think it's easier for you to track, because the annual report or sustainability report will have to, you know, you really have to present all this data in a very transparent manner. And then I always say that if the report is not externally audited, I wouldn't take the data too seriously. Okay, now actually the Global Circularity Gap report show that the world, only about 9% of the global economy is circular. And I would say that there's a huge gap. And what do you think back home in Singapore, the recycling rate for plastic and textile are at the bottom. For construction waste, we're doing very well, 90%. So there is a mixture of like regulatory, you know, pressure, and also, you know, industry practices and all that. How would you, you know, if you are the policymaker, how would you think that you can change this 4% to 40%, you know, in the shortest time? So I give you the magic wand. What do you think will work better for you?
Yeah, I mean, just to jump in on that, I think it's fair to say that in Singapore, actually, that magic wand has already been waved, and there are processes going on behind the scenes that we're maybe not all privy to, that are going to rapidly increase our recycle rate for plastics over the next kind of 3.5, 4 years. Now, what I'm talking about is extended producer responsibility, and this is government level regulation that's going to hold producers responsible. For me, again, the plastic industry, it's going to hold people who generate a lot of packaging responsible to collect that same quantity of packaging or pay a fine as a result. And what it will do is make kind of producers a lot more kind of willing to invest into things like recycling infrastructure and to really kind of build on that circular economy. And the two examples are 2022, we're going to have a bottle buyback system in Singapore, which will allow all drinks bottles to be, I think it's 5 drinks bottles will be worth 10 cents. So it kind of like spurs the informal sector to collect them and deposit them in these vending machines and get money out in return. And then by 2025, there's going to be an all-encompassing kind of EPR strategy, extended producer responsibility regulation, which will basically hold all the big producers to account. So watch this space in Singapore. It's not going to be long.
Wonderful. Yes. And I think the Singapore Green Plan is really doing a great job. And then it is ambitious plan. There are a lot of policy, whether it's for building industry, for, you know, the plastic, you know, packaging production, and even food industry and all that. Do you see similar, policy coming your way in the textile industry, Ray?
Yes, it's a bit challenging in terms of the fashion industry because in the Singapore context, there are no garment factories here that we can immediately implement such policies for us to mobilize the whole circularity concept. But in the general global aspect of what's happening in the fashion industry, for it to be fully circular, it really needs to start from design. From considering what the materials that we will be using and how it will end up after the life of it, or like after the person uses it. There's a lot of initiative that's happening in the textile industry. If you've heard the Ellen McCartney Foundation, where they have started a circular jeans, because I think everyone owns a pair of jeans. So they, in partnership with the big brands like Levi's, Gap, they have now developed a full circular jeans that after using that jeans, they can actually recycle that into another product. So I think that's what's happening in the fashion industry. But because in reality, the fashion industry is about secrets. They will never share about their the factories that they are using, because they don't want to have that kind of competition. And that's where the need of transparency needs to comes in, and of course a proper policies or like metrics for us to share to in the fashion industry, for us to have that equal opportunity for us to explore the different types of materials and designs that can help us accelerate the whole idea of circularity. So I think that's what's happening for now in the fashion industry.
Wonderful. How about you, JJ? If you want, to use this magic wand to make your business case even stronger and make it easier for social enterprise to grow the business. What are the wish lists that you hope to see?
I think because of the pandemic, the online buying power is accelerate, and packaging for online is a criteria for e-commerce. And if we could recycle the packagings and for like those big online platform, I think that will help a lot for the plastic reduction, and also offset the carbon footprint when we do the shipping.
Yeah, sounds really good. But okay, all three of you are relatively young. Okay, I came across people like you, very dynamic, very positive about the future. But I also come across some is like, no, not much future for us to talk about. I don't want to get married. I don't want to have kids and all that. I want to hear from you that, among your friends, among your peers and all that, do you see a change in their attitude, towards, the future? And, how are they going to like, contribute to a more sustainable future? And in your role as a really dynamic, social entrepreneur, how did you play your role as to like engage them and encourage them, to contribute? Every small effort counts. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Some anecdotes from your own experience with friends and peers. Tom, you want to start first?
Yeah, I'll kick off. So I don't know about my fellow panelists, but I think because all of my friends know that I'm in environmentalism, I seem to be the go-to guy when they've got a question. And actually that gives a really good opportunity for us to frame the whole situation in a positive way, and it's very easy to get kind of, environmental or eco anxiety, as you say, and decide, right, I'm not having kids, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. I think really personally, the reality is that humanity will survive. Like, even if things go completely horribly wrong, humanity is going to survive. But the question is that a world we want to live in, with mass kind of refugees, climate refugees, flooding, kind of moving from entire countries to other nations, collapses of ecosystems and biodiversity and all of this. It's really kind of a miserable picture when you think about it, but we're not guaranteed that that is going to be the outcome. And actually what we almost need is more smart people, more dedicated people who are going to fight for this, going to study, become scientists and and really kind of find the solutions that we need, because in the next kind of 10, 20, 30 years, a lot will happen that we can't even comprehend right now, I believe, on a technological front, that's going to really help us fight back against kind of the increase in temperature on Earth. And that's really kind of what I want people to have. I want them to have that positivity in the human race that, okay, fair play, we caused this. There's no denying that. But we can also use our collective intellectual might to get ourselves out of this as well. But we've just got to be positive, keep moving forward, and make sure that we are constantly improving.
Great.
Yes.
Ray, you want to take this already? Ray? Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Ray, please. No, it's okay, Ray. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the whole sustainability journey is like a roller coaster. Like at one point you feel that we're doing really an amazing job in advancing the whole sustainability movement, and then the next day we just felt that we're not doing enough. And with that emotion, we feel like, where do we stand from all of this? What's happening? Especially if you are very much in tune of like what's the news. Sometimes it can be very depressing that there are just a lot of things that needs to be done, and as a single person, you cannot do that much. So in a group of friends that I have, we would always have that kind of conversation of like letting ourselves really vent out of what's happening, because I think it's really is important also to acknowledge that, but at the same time, knowing the reason why we're doing this, and all what we can do now is to try, because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but what we can do is do what we can today, and that's the most important part, because again, no one knows the answer, and whatever that we're doing, small or big one, all we can do is just try.
Great. Sounds positive. How about you, JJ?
I think my group of friends, they are mostly have children, and they are quite educated to their children about sustainability topic, from what I see. And in Rehyphen, we just want to bring the music back, although we think that music could not fight the virus, but at least it can heal the soul and make people be more involved and more aware about the sustainability topics.
Sounds really good. Okay, one last question. I'm mindful of the time and all. This decade is called a decade of urgent action. How would you see that we can really expedite the action? Okay, just now we share some of the education and all, but I've been on this journey for 26 years. So we try many ways, whether it's preaching, whether it's threatening, whether, it's engaging, and all that. So in your opinion, what will be, the best way that you think have worked for you? And moving forward, you're going to step up on that as well, for really, hopefully by 2030, we can see a much, clearer so-called low carbon resiliency in our world. Net zero is a very challenging task. I mean, CDI has pledged to net zero, but I can tell you that it is very difficult, but we are pushing ourselves, and we are also being very transparent to look at how we can do it and what is the progress year on year. So in your social enterprise, what do you think, will really help you, and what is your game plan? Just leak out a little bit of trade secret, and see how we can see you help to build this so-called climate and social resiliency in the long run. Okay, Tom, you first. You always come first.
Yeah, happily. It's a good one. I think in reality, we need to make sure, I'm going to give two answers. Like first of all, we need to make sure that we're inspiring communities all around us, no matter what your sustainability angle is. Just do something sustainable that affects other people and gets people hooked. Because at the end of the day, we need the people of all the nations around the world to hold governments really to account and force governments to do what they don't really like to do, which is actually draw a line in the sand and set regulations that force commitments like the ones you've already made, Esther, around kind of net zero by 2030. Like, can we convince governments that actually they should regulate, that all organizations should by law have to work towards this? And of course it would be unpopular, but the government at the end of the day of all of the nations around the world, they do answer to the people at the ballot box. So I really think that's how we will accelerate it. You know, the people are already on this journey. Some companies are already way ahead of the curve and are on this journey, but we've now got to push it to all of them. And for me personally, it's just, you know, can we get our solution in regulation? Because if companies again have to do it, then you get scale. And when you get scale, the amount of money that floods into solutions is enormous. And if we can pull that off in 10 years, then I think the next 10, 20 years, you know, a lot will get done.
Wonderful. Okay, Ray? Yeah.
Okay, so for us really is to make swapping as a default for you to get clothes before considering buying new. That has always been our goal since we've started. And as an individual is really just practicing what we're preaching in terms of like the clothes that we are using, the materials at the same time. That also expands to the other things that you do, from food and like the lifestyle that you are like using. So I think that is one. And I think so much with like the policies, like because everyone needs to work together and really need to understand. And for us, what we have really seen that the most effective way for us to convince people to do swapping or to adopt a more sustainable lifestyle is by acknowledging them that everyone has a different stage of where they are and trying to help them in that journey, and acknowledging that not everyone or no one can be perfect in this journey, and letting them be empowered to make like right decision.
Wonderful. JJ, you have the last word.
In Rehyphen, we think that raw material is the fundamental sources for building something. So therefore, I hope that people could view waste in a different way. And also, we are willing to teach people about how to turn waste into a new materials in future as well.
Yes, wonderful. I think from my own humble journey, you know, the experience, I think we have actually reached a tipping point. I don't think we can turn back and tell people that sustainability is not important. I think the world has learned the hard way. And I think it is really the time for us to step up on education and engagement, to turn just now what Tom said, the eco-anxiety, to something that it is eco-enthusiasm, to turn, you know, preaching to really action. And I think, you know, we can work together, whether public, private, or people sectors, you know, we can all work together to really change the present and save our future. Thank you very much. And back to you, Marilyn.
Thank you, Esther. Thanks everyone for joining our virtual SSA once again. A special thank you to our panelists and moderator for an inspiring session. We'd like to take a quick screen grab of everyone on the screen. So please turn on your cameras if you don't have them on and smile. My team will count down from 3 and take quick screenshots.
Everybody say smile. Yes. Say cheese.
Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Okay, thank you, everyone. As mentioned before, this session has been recorded and we posted on our YouTube page for your viewing. Thanks again and stay safe.
Thanks, bye-bye.
Thank you for having us. Enjoy the rest of your Earth Day.
Bye, thank you.